Well, hello there all you absolutely magnificent people, and welcome back to another episode of An Ecologist Plays, where we talk about nature while playing games. My name is Will, I'm an ecologist by training, and we are back in Enshrouded, and we are just about ready to head out on another adventure. I think we're basically ready. The sun is still high, I think it is time to head out. Now, where we are going is to the Nomad Highlands. Finally, we are heading off into that biome over there. Now, in order to go there, we are going to, I think, head on over to this fast travel point of ours here, which is the one between Fonsong Frontier and Thornhold over there. And of course, we will be heading towards the southeast over there. Now, we are just going to go through the Glimmerrock mine area over there. I think then we should be able to get towards the Pillars of Creation, where we will hopefully be able to get the masonry tools. And then from there, we should be able to head into the Nomad Highlands. And I do love the Nomad Highlands. It's a bit more of a savanna ecosystem, which is really very nice. It's a bit of a different biome. After having done a lot of forested environments, some meadows there in the low meadows area, but generally we've been looking mostly at forested environments. We had the Springlands, which it has a few forest patches. We saw forest in the Revelwood as well, and of course in the Blackmire marshes. We had vegetation very similar to the Revelwood forests. So finally we are going to head off into a more of a savanna environment, which is really, really lovely. I do love savannas, even though I am very allergic to grasses, which is very, very ironic for a botanist or ecologist to actually be. But grass seeds and grass pollen, they are my nemesis, so I try to avoid them as much as possible. But the thing with savannas, they're basically just grasses and trees combined. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenging biome for Will to go into. But luckily in the game I'm not allergic to grass seeds and grass pollen, so we should be able to make the journey no problem. And we actually just skipped the Glimmerrock mine altogether. We're just going via the mountain there. That's brilliant. And now it is time to head through the Enshrouded area over there. We may encounter some shroud critters over here. I think they are here. Maybe not. Maybe we are kind of skipping them. Oh, that's fine. I am happy to skip the shroud critters. Not particularly fond of them. Really awesome though. Critters that are actually adapted for life in the shroud. Whereas the shroud affects most creatures. The fell critters, well, they are just happy to be there, I guess. Of course, it could just be that they are corrupted beyond recognition and beyond saving. But here we go. We are at the Pillars of Creation, and we need to head up towards, not quite the top there, but you can see right over there, there's a bit of a glow there. I suspect that is an obelisk that is up there, and then I think past that we should be able to find the masonry tools, if I'm not mistaken. Now there are some ruins over there. We're not going to go there now. I think we're just going to beeline it to the Nomad Highlands, so we can finally start looking for a place to build our botanical gardens. And yes indeed, there is an ancient obelisk right over here. I do believe that put some new things on our, new markers on our map over here for the Nomad Highlands in particular. But indeed, some kind of old research camp here, and very, very importantly, masonry tools, which will allow us to make more complex things, I believe, at the carpenter. Very useful to check everything here, because you may find things like, well, a chemical base here, or very importantly, tin bars. Now, at this point, we have not yet encountered tin at all, so it's a great way to actually get tin. And there's an interesting note here talking about the dragon sword that we will go and get later on. But very importantly, it talks here about the existence of real dragons, which at this point, I think in the Nomad Highlands here, nobody really believes that the dragons are real. Yet later on, as we head into the Albanese summits, we'll find out that, indeed, they are more than just real. They are a menace. At least the one is a menace. And the note also talked about how the massive bones, the fossilized bones in the Nomad Highlands, could be explained through them being the bones of, well, dragons. Which, in all honesty, I don't know. I mean, I always thought that the massive bones we find in the Nomad Highlands, that we will have a look at momentarily, I believe them to be the remnants of massive sea creatures, because those bones belong to a really, really massive creature, which would not be able to be supported, at least not, in a terrestrial environment. They would be too heavy to survive on land. Oh, we got bronze bars as well. But yeah, surely such a big creature would be crushed under the weight of, gravity. So surely they would not be able to survive in the real world, at least not, in the game here. And oftentimes that is seen as a problem for dragons in fiction. They're often depicted as being so large and so heavy that they simply would not be able to be supported on land. But all of that discounts the presence of one potential thing: magic. And magic can be used to explain how these dragons are able to survive. Sorry, Vuka, we're just taking some of your fur here. But magic would explain how the animals, how such massive creatures, how dragons are able to survive. With dragons simply being kept in the air and, kept alive through magic. And, well, in the world here, in Enshrouded, in Embervale, we definitely do have magic. I mean, you've got a mage class, after all. Of course, in the real world, that doesn't work. Like, you don't have magic like you have in Embervale here. But in this world here, magic can explain a lot of things. We can actually see some dragon bones or massive fossilized bones sticking out right over there, some ribs in the distance there. Unfortunately, it is nighttime now. I really was hoping we'd actually be here in the daytime. Oh, you know what? We did have beds down in the research camp. Let's make our way down there again. There we go, there's a bed. And let there be light. Yeah, Vuka, friends. Hey guys. Lovely. I do love having that Vuka language skill. Just makes life so much easier to just explore a bit. But now, here we go. Typical savanna. You can see lots of grasses and you can see some trees. If you look at tree density, right, savanna is moderate tree density. Too few trees and you're looking more at a grassland, perhaps with some scattered trees, or perhaps you're looking at a parkland, which is a very open type of savanna. If you get too many trees, well, then you're starting to look at a forest. But somewhere in between, we have a savanna, which is a nice mixture of grasses and trees, and in this case also some shrubs present as well. But the shrubs we've got present are Rooibos, which is a South African plant. Ah, love it. Love the representation of South Africa here. Of course, Rooibos tea, very popular all over the world, but it occurs here in South Africa. I've just harvested a few plants. I'm not going to harvest everything. We are trying to play in an ecological way after all. So we're leaving some of these flowering ones. Now, if we look very closely, you may be able to kind of see there. Yeah, if I walk like this, you should be able to see the flowers there. They are pea-shaped, right? Because, well, they are in the pea family. They are in the Fabaceae family. Fabaceae, faba, refers to bean. Faba is Latin for bean. And, as a random fact, if you've ever watched Mr. Bean, like back in the day, the intro song is Ecce homo qui est faba, which is Latin for behold the man who is a bean. And the outro is Vale homo qui est faba, which means farewell man who is a bean. So faba means bean, which is, just a random little fact over there. All right. Anyway, we harvested some Rooibos tea there. We're also going to harvest some aloe over here. Again, just going to chop out, I think, one over here. Should be enough, at least for now, because that allows us to make some aloe seedlings. Now, we don't see flowers on the aloes here, interestingly enough, but you can see the succulent leaves. And if you were to cut into those leaves, well, there's a very juicy sap in there. And that's because, well, aloes are succulent plants. They store water in these succulent leaves. So they can use that water during the dry season so they don't die when the droughts or the dry season arrives. Very, very cool plants. If they were to flower, many of these aloes would most likely flower at the same time. They can really turn a piece of felt from dull yellowish brownish shades to this vivid orange and yellow color as they all start flowering. I've got a photo up there of what a piece of felt near Oudtshoorn, my old hometown, looks like when the aloes are in bloom. And of course, when they all are flowering, they also draw the attention of things like sunbirds and other birds that will pollinate them. So it's really a spectacle to behold, as we just collect some bell peppers as well. Peppers obviously love the heat, they love the warmer conditions. So in the savannah here, yeah, you would expect to find some peppers. Of course, we're going to grow all these plants and we're going to put them in our, oh hello, they level up to level 20. And we're going to grow them in our lovely little food forest that we also have going. And let's just see, we are at the flame sanctum here. I just want to dig my way in a bit. And of course, grab some sparks over here. Ooh, there is a little grapple point. Oh, and a golden chest with a soothsayer hammer and another bow. Right, now that we are here, there are two things to note. The first thing is that if we hit into the rocks here, we get limestone. So this is a new geological feature we now have access to. We now have access to limestone. Now, what on earth is limestone? Limestone, first of all, was laid down as marine deposits. In marine environments, the little skeletons of calcium-containing little critters, their skeletons get laid down, and that forms limestone. Over a very, very long time, as it gets compressed, it turns into limestone. Now, the fact that it has calcium means that it is, secondly, a very alkaline or basic material. Basic as in alkaline, not basic as in simple or easy or small or useless, okay? So basic meaning it's very alkaline. It contains a lot of calcium carbonate. And because it contains calcium carbonate, very often in limestone, also in dolomite, which also would be calcium carbonate rich rocks, you'll have rainwater actually dissolving it, because rainwater is slightly acidic and acids will dissolve limestone. One of the best ways to test for calcium carbonate is to actually carry a vial of hydrochloric acid. Of course, you've got to be careful that the hydrochloric acid doesn't actually spill or the little bottle doesn't break that you carry it in. But if you pour that onto calcium carbonate containing rocks like calcrete or limestone or dolomite, what will happen is that acid will dissolve the calcium containing rock, and the carbonate part thereof gets turned into carbon dioxide, which then produces little bubbles. Okay, so you can actually see the rocks bubbling after being exposed to hydrochloric acid. Right, so that's the first thing we've got here. We've got limestone. But of course, with it being very alkaline in nature, it would impact the vegetation that you can find growing over here. You'd need plants that are adapted to a calcium-rich and very alkaline environment. And secondly, we've got, as I've mentioned, savanna. Oh, there's a saber-toothed cat there chasing the chicken. That is very cool to see, especially considering that it should not attack us. It should be friendly towards us, and it is just carrying on chasing its prey. Ooh, it managed to kill the chicken. Alright, now this means, hello kitty. Yeah, you are friendly, okay. We should be able to just harvest this flightless red-tailed little chicken over here. I think there's another one dead up ahead. It seems as though the saber-tooth was just killing them for fun, not actually eating them. Interesting that it is alone. Or is that another one up there? No, I think it is alone, actually. Yeah, I don't see any other saber-tooth cat here. I do see another dead little flightless red-tail. Alright, very, very cool kitties. We will be chatting about them later. Hello, little one. Oh man, I love them. Love the patterns. Love the tail in particular. If you can have a look there at the tail. There we go. Oh, kind of flattened, right? But flattened horizontally, not vertically. That is a very, very interesting adaptation. We'll chat about that in a future episode. For now, though, what I also really wanted to get to at was, why is there savanna here? Like, looking out over this landscape, you can see the savanna stretches all the way up to there and stretches all the way to over there, where it then turns into a desert environment, into the Kindle waste deserts. Why do we have savanna here and not where we just were? Why are the springlands forested and not savanna ecosystems? It's most likely because of this mountain range over here, the pillars of creation that we are currently under. What happens is that as moist air comes blowing in from most likely this little delta area over here, I suspect this is kind of like a little river delta over here, and you most likely have the ocean to the south over here. And because you've got that, you most likely have humid air blowing in along here. Now, that humid air, as it gets pushed up against the pillars of creation, the air cools down. And when air cools down, it results in rain, because cool air doesn't hold moisture as well as hot air does. So as the air gets pushed up the mountain, but on the other side of the mountain there, the rain falls. And because you have rain falling on this side of the mountain, you've got forested ecosystems on that side. But then by the time the air actually blows across the pillars of creation or over this mountain range here, it's drier air, because a lot of moisture has been lost as rain fell on this side of the mountain. So you've got what we call orographic rainfall, which is when rainfall is associated with a change in altitude. Okay, so an increase in altitude. And so what we now have is what we call a rain shadow, which is the area on the other side of the mountain where there is now less rain than on the other side. So this is why we have a savanna ecosystem here and not a forest ecosystem. I just think that is really, really cool. The fact that you have a mountain and on the one side you've got a forested environment, a much greener environment, and on this side we've got a savanna ecosystem, much drier environment. Oh look, we've got some more flightless red-tailed chicken birds over there. Right over there. There's one there, another one there, and another one over there. Now there does not seem to... and another one over there. A little flock of them. There does not appear to be any sexual dimorphism in them, meaning that they are very possibly monogamous. Meaning, one male will have one female will have one male, which is a very interesting adaptation for birds like these. I really would have expected, especially considering that they're actually brightly colored, I would have expected there to be some kind of difference between the males and the females, some kind of sexual dimorphism, which we do not appear to have, which is very, very interesting. You know what? I'm actually going to, at least for now, place a fast travel point, a little flame altar, on the mountain over here, because from here we should be able to travel quite a distance in the different directions. So I think this is a good spot to actually place an altar. Now luckily we can actually use limestone to create it. Previously we were only able to use proper rocks to make it. Now we can actually make a limestone altar. So we're going to craft that there and just plop it down over here so that we can very easily travel back here. Let's just see. I think, yeah, we can still place one more flame altar. I think what we really need to do is unlock the fast travel point, the Ancient Spire. And as you can see, it is right over there. So I think let's head out in that direction. On the way, we are just going to stop here by the massive, massive ribs we can see sticking out from the plains down here. Oh yeah, massive, massive. This is a part of the vertebral column. This is one of the vertebrae, and then you've got the massive ribs associated with it. So this is probably one of the thoracic vertebrae. There we go, we can make the fossilized bone arrow, but the thoracic vertebrae are associated with your ribs. Okay, so each one of the thoracic vertebrae will have a rib attaching to it. But you can imagine, whatever creature had these ribs and these vertebrae, oh, it was truly massive, massive in size. Hello there, Vuka. Happy to see you all here. I really love the Vuka language skill. That and Calm Spirit probably, and Blink, probably my favorite 3 skills that I can get in this game. Okay, I was just wondering, we were just running around here and I was wondering whether this is a checkpoint with scavengers or Vuka, but it's Vuka, it's fine. I'm happy. Whenever it's Vuka, I am very, very happy because Vuka are friends. Now, what you will notice whenever you run through the Nomad Highlands is a lot of very interesting rock formations, like this one over here, which is basically a flat rock balanced on some legs over here. And you'll see these types of weird rock formations all over the show. And that is because it is limestone, which is not a particularly hard rock. Okay, it is a surprisingly soft rock. And first of all, as mentioned, you will have rainwater eroding it because, as mentioned, rainwater is slightly acidic and it will erode this very alkaline rock. But secondly, when wind blows through the landscape here, it most likely will also carve all kinds of intricate patterns through the rock here. And you can see that most likely a lot of these little weird rock columns were made by wind blowing through the Nomad Highlands. And very often your savanna ecosystems can get very, very windy. I mean, you've got massive plains. Yeah, it can get very, very windy on those plains. Ah, we've got a settlement coming up here. I think it is a magical settlement because there is a bit of floating rock over here. A Rattlebleak. Okay. And, well, this area is taken over by saber-toothed cats. They seem to have moved into the environment here, which, you know, it kind of makes sense. You would have these big cats using these houses as very nice dens for themselves. And I think there are most likely also some rats here associated with the fact that you've got wheat over here, and that's a nice food source for these big kitties over here. Speaking of which, let's actually harvest the wheat here. I really didn't know you could actually get wheat here. I knew that you could get wheat later on. Never knew you could get wheat here. There's an interesting note here by Ikora, which I think is a sorcerer, if I'm not mistaken. And Ikora was talking about a black cauldron, and they were staring into it, and they thought that the cauldron was glaring back. Also, they don't like the villagers, they drain their energy. And they're also talking about how the cells don't just contaminate, they absorb and they turn it into something new. So talking about shroud spores and how it seems to basically convert living matter into something new. Of course, turning living beings into fell creatures or fell beings. And there are quite a lot of these fell creatures, little pillars of fell people over here lining the road. Oh, got shroud particles there, something new. That's cool. Oh, there goes another flightless red tail just died. Compliments of this saber-toothed kitty over there. Now, sugarcane we will chat about later, next time. I think there we go. That kitty is running, chasing down the flightless red tail again. And, ooh, missed it. Not very successful. Ooh, okay, never mind. It was successful. But initially, it missed. And a very interesting point to make. Most predators will actually fail. Okay, most hunts by predators are unsuccessful. They don't manage to actually catch their prey most of the time. Some predators are surprisingly effective, like for example the very small black-footed cat, which is a wild cat indigenous to southern Africa. It's quite secretive and quite rare, rarely seen, but they do very well. They are extremely efficient hunters of rodents and small birds and lizards and stuff like that, smaller prey animals. And then also animals like wild dogs, African wild dogs or painted wolves or painted dogs. They're also very, very successful in their hunts as well. Here we go, we reached the ancient spire. Now it's just a matter of heading up to the top through the magic of editing. So I'll see you at the top. So interesting what the flame here mentions. With the Nomad Highlands, the underbelly is a wasteland, a hunting ground for the condemned. So it seems as though in the lower lying areas, with the shroud that is there, the fell is there. And what seems to have happened is wherever the shroud actually came in, it displaced what was there. So that lower lying area over there, you most likely had the VUCA previously. And then with the shroud having flooded that area, the VUCA needed a place to go. And they came out from these lower lying areas, and as a result they came into contact and into conflict with people that were living in the areas that they now wanted to inhabit. And that's something we very often see in invasion ecology as well. When an alien invasive species starts moving into an area, it displaces the species that were there. And that of course has very, very negative impacts on the ecosystem. And so it is something to really be avoided. Now, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, another time. For now, I just want to quickly turn it into daytime, and we'll be back in a moment. Now, the reason why I wanted it daytime is so that we can actually have a look at where I want to build the Botanical Gardens. And you know what? I think that area over there does show promise. So let's head there and see whether this would indeed be a suitable environment. Now, from the onset, this does look perfect. This is a surprisingly flat environment. We can really build quite a lot of things here. We are basically on these weird stepping stones, and we can probably build a few house-like structures submerged into the ground here so that it doesn't actually impact the above ground aesthetics. Yeah, I think this area, this really does hold a lot of promise. Alright, so off screen, I will probably start working on this. So the idea is that our botanical gardens will actually demonstrate the plants and animals that you typically find in the different biomes. So there'll be a springlands biome or the forest environment, there'll be a revelwood forest, there'll be perhaps a swampland, although I don't think we can really create a proper swampland yet. But I'll have tried to replicate that at least a little bit. Then, of course, we will also have a Nomad Highlands section, and we will later on then have a Kindleway section, an Albaneve Summit section, and a Valewater Basin section as well. So each time we go and explore a new environment, well, we are going to add a new part to this botanical garden of ours. Alright, I can't wait to see what happens here. And if you would like to follow the journey along with us, please hit that subscribe button for more gaming content with an educational flair. But you know what? I think this is where we are going to end today's episode, everybody. So thank you very much for joining me on our little adventure as we finally head into the Nomad Highlands. If you've got any comments or questions, please pop them down in the comments below. And of course, until next time, everybody, stay safe. I'll see you all soon. Cheers!